Dr. Kira pressed her face closer to the data screen, her 4 eyes working independently to scan different sections of the corrupted readings. 3 days had passed since the scanner incident, and she had barely slept. Coffee cups from 6 different worlds cluttered her desk, each one cold and forgotten. The detention cell where they were keeping Alex was just down the hall, but it might as well have been on another planet. Academy security had sealed off the entire research wing after 2 more scanning devices had suffered mysterious failures, simply from analyzing the stored data from Alex's examination. "Show me the temporal displacement readings again," she said to her assistant. Bryn was young for a Saurian, barely past his shedding ceremony, but he had a gift for understanding ancient technology. His claws clicked rapidly across the holographic interface as he pulled up the requested data. "Here, Dr. Kira, but I must warn you, looking at this information for too long causes headaches even for our species." The display filled with numbers that should not exist. According to the scanner's records, Alex had somehow been in the examination chamber for negative time. Not 0 time, negative time. The energy readings showed impossible spikes that violated basic physics. Most disturbing of all, the genetic analysis had found DNA sequences that appeared to be written in a language. "Have you made any progress with the linguistic analysis, Doctor?" Kira asked. Bryn's head crest flattened against his skull, a sign of deep concern. "The preliminary results are troubling. The Academy's translation computers cannot identify the language family, but they insist it is a language. Complex grammar, consistent syntax, semantic meaning. It is as if someone wrote instructions directly into human genetic code." A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to the laboratory. Dr. Kira looked at her security monitor and saw Alex standing in the corridor with 2 guards. The human looked tired but alert, and surprisingly calm for someone who had been detained for 3 days. "Let them in," she decided. The guards escorted Alex inside but remained by the door. Up close, Dr. Kira could see why the incident had shaken the Academy so badly. There was something different about this human, something that her scientist's mind struggled to categorize. Alex's presence seemed to make the room feel larger and smaller at the same time. "Dr. Kira," Alex said with a polite nod, "I was hoping we could talk." "Indeed, please sit." She gestured to a chair that adjusted itself automatically to human proportions. "I have been studying your examination results. They are quite extraordinary." "Extraordinarily broken, you mean?" "No." Dr. Kira moved closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "Not broken, overwhelmed. The 2 scanner was designed to measure energy signatures on a scale appropriate for known galactic species. Your readings broke that scale entirely." Alex leaned forward in their chair. "What kind of energies are we talking about?" Bryn spoke up from his workstation. "Spiritual resonance, genetic potential, connection to the cosmic forces that govern, faster-than-light travel, and advanced energy manipulation. The predecessors built the scanner to identify beings capable of transcending normal physical limitations. And I transcended them a little too much?" "A little too much," Dr. Kira confirmed dryly. "According to our measurements, you should not be able to exist in this universe without causing reality to collapse around you." Alex was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "But reality hasn't collapsed." "No, it has not. Which leads me to believe that either our understanding of physics is fundamentally wrong, or you represent something entirely new in galactic civilization." The lights in the laboratory flickered. It was subtle, barely noticeable. But Dr. Kira had been watching for exactly this phenomenon. Since Alex's arrival in the detention wing, electronic systems throughout the research section had been experiencing minor malfunctions. Nothing dangerous, just small glitches that seemed to cluster around Alex's location. "Are you doing that?" she asked, pointing to the lights. Alex looked up at the ceiling. "I don't think so. I mean, I'm not trying to do anything. But lately, things have been acting strange around me." "What kinds of things?" "My cell door keeps unlocking itself. The food dispenser gives me items I was thinking about rather than what I actually ordered. Yesterday, one of the guard's weapons started playing music instead of charging up." Kira exchanged a meaningful look with Bryn. These were exactly the kinds of phenomena that the ancient texts described when discussing the mythical flame bearers. Alex, I need to share something with you, but I want you to understand that what I am about to say comes from very old, very unreliable sources. She moved to another workstation and called up a holographic display of ancient symbols. These are excerpts from predecessor archives that we have been able to translate. They speak of beings called flame bearers who carried fire from a previous universe into this one. The symbols on the display began to glow more brightly as Alex looked at them. Dr. Kira noted this reaction but continued speaking. According to these texts, the predecessors were not originally from our universe. They were refugees from a reality that was dying, where the fundamental forces were breaking down. They brought with them a spark of creation itself, hiding it in the genetic code of various species throughout the galaxy. You're saying I'm carrying fire from another universe? I am saying that the evidence suggests it is possible. Doctor, Kira pulled up Alex's genetic analysis. These sequences in your DNA that appear to be written in a language, they match symbols found in the deepest predecessor archives, symbols that we have never been able to translate until now. Alex stood up and walked closer to the holographic display. As they approached, the ancient symbols began to pulse in rhythm with their heartbeat. The light grew so bright that Bryn had to adjust the display settings. What do they say? Alex asked quietly. Dr. Kira consulted her translation notes. The message is fragmented, but the parts we can read say things like, when the flame awakens, the barriers between what is and what could be will thin. And the carrier shall not rule but kindle, not conquer but create. The laboratory fell silent except for the humming of computers and the soft sound of Alex's breathing. The holographic symbols continued to pulse, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Finally, Alex turned away from the display. The symbols immediately dimmed back to normal. So what happens now? They asked. Dr. Kira looked at the data screens, at the impossible readings and the fragments of prophecy, at this human who seemed to bend reality without even trying. Now, she said, we try to understand what you are becoming before the rest of the galaxy decides you are too dangerous to exist. The Academy's central plaza buzzed with tension as groups of cadets clustered around emergency news broadcasts. Word of the scanner incident had leaked beyond the Academy's walls, and now representatives from dozens of galactic governments were demanding answers. Alex watched from a high observation deck, flanked by security guards who looked increasingly nervous as the crowds below grew larger. Commander Voss strode across the plaza like a man walking into battle. His gray uniform was crisp, his metals polished, and his expression harder than asteroid rock. Behind him marched a squad of senior officers all wearing the same grim determination. When he reached the center of the plaza, his amplified voice cut through the chatter. Attention all personnel. By order of the Academy Council, effective immediately, all research into the recent scanning anomaly is suspended. The subject will be transferred to a secure facility for the safety of all students and staff. A ripple of protest went through the crowd. Near the fountain, Dr. Kira stood up on a bench, her forearms gesturing for attention. Commander Voss, with respect, you cannot simply lock away something we do not understand. The readings we obtained represent a breakthrough in our knowledge of cosmic forces. To abandon this research would be criminal negligence. Dr. Kira, the readings you obtained also destroyed 3 scanning devices and caused system failures throughout the research wing. Whatever this human is carrying, it poses a clear threat to Academy operations. From their vantage point above, Alex could see the crowd beginning to divide. Some cadets nodded in agreement with Commander Voss, especially the older ones who had seen combat. Others gathered around Dr. Kira, mostly researchers and younger students whose curiosity outweighed their caution. But there was a third group forming near the Academy's ancient memorial wall, and they worried Alex more than the others. These cadets came from different species, but they all had the same look in their eyes. They were staring up at Alex with something that looked uncomfortably like worship. We need to get you out of sight, one of the guards murmured. This situation is deteriorating rapidly. Alex nodded and turned to leave, but stopped when they heard a new voice from the plaza below. It was Nara, a resident student Alex had met briefly during orientation. Her crystalline form caught the light as she stepped forward. Commander Voss, Dr. Kira, you are both missing the obvious truth. Her voice had the musical quality common to her species. But there was steel underneath the melody. This is not a threat or a research opportunity. This is a fulfillment. The plaza fell quiet. Nara raised one of her faceted arms, pointing directly at Alex on the observation deck. My people have stories. Old stories from before we reached the stars. Stories of the firewalker who would come when the darkness grew too deep. The Saurians have similar tales, as do the Voidkin and a dozen other species. We have been waiting for this moment for millennia. Commander Voss's face darkened. Cadet Nara, return to your quarters immediately. I will not have Academy personnel spreading superstitious nonsense. It is not superstition when the evidence stands before us. Nara's entire body began to glow more brightly. The 2 scanner was not broken by this human. It was awakened, just as we are being awakened. More cadets joined Nara near the memorial wall. Alex watched in growing alarm as students from various species began to exhibit unusual behaviors. The Saurians' crests were flaring in patterns Alex had never seen before. The Voidkin were pulsing with light that seemed to respond to each other across the plaza. Even some of the more reserved species were showing signs of agitation or excitement. This is getting out of hand, Dr. Kira announced, her scientific objectivity warring with obvious fascination. We need to conduct proper studies before drawing any conclusions about prophetic fulfillment. We need to contain this situation before it spreads beyond the Academy, Commander Voss countered. He activated his command communicator. All units implement Protocol 7, full lockdown of the research wing and detention of any personnel showing signs of anomalous behavior. That was when the lights began to dance. It started subtly, just a slight flickering in the plaza's illumination system. But as the tension in the crowd increased, the lights began to pulse in rhythm with the emotions below. When Commander Voss spoke, they dimmed. When Nara or Dr. Kira argued back, they brightened. When the faithful cadets near the memorial began to chant something in an ancient language, the lights began to cycle through colors that should not have been possible with standard Academy equipment. Alex felt something building in their chest, like pressure before a storm. They could sense the emotions of everyone in the plaza, could feel the fear from Voss's supporters, the curiosity from Dr. Kira's researchers, and the almost desperate hope from Nara's growing group of believers. Sir, one of the guards said urgently, we really need to move you now. But before Alex could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Academy. Emergency lights bathed the plaza in red as an announcement echoed from speakers everywhere. Attention all personnel. Multiple unidentified vessels have entered Academy space. All students and staff report to designated emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. The crowd in the plaza scattered, but the 3 factions maintained their basic divisions, even as they moved to emergency positions. Commander Voss shouted orders to his security teams. Dr. Kira gathered her research staff, her datapad still clutched in her hands. Nara led her followers toward the Academy's ancient chapel, their destination somehow more important to them than the emergency shelters. Alex remained on the observation deck, surrounded by increasingly nervous guards as ships appeared in the sky above. There were dozens of them, representing multiple galactic governments and several species Alex did not recognize. Some were clearly military vessels bristling with weapons. Others looked like research ships, their sensors already focusing on the Academy's main buildings. They are here for you, one of the guards said quietly. Alex nodded, understanding finally beginning to dawn. The scanner incident had not been contained to the Academy. Word had spread through galactic communication networks, and now every major power wanted to control or eliminate whatever they thought Alex represented. In the plaza below, the 3 factions were taking positions that looked less like emergency response and more like preparation for siege. Commander Voss's security forces controlled the main gates and communication centers. Dr. Kira's researchers had barricaded themselves in the laboratory complex with all their data. Nara's believers occupied the chapel and memorial areas, their chanting now audible even over the emergency alarms. The Academy was no longer united. It had become 3 separate camps with conflicting goals, all centered around one confused human who was beginning to understand that their simple life on Earth was never going to return. Above them all, the ships continued to arrive, and Alex could feel something stirring in their chest that felt uncomfortably like flame. Deep beneath the Academy, in archives that few living beings had ever seen, Dr. Kira ran her fingers across stone tablets that predated galactic civilization by millions of years. The emergency lockdown had given her unexpected access to restricted sections, as security protocols focused on external threats rather than internal research. Her portable lights cast dancing shadows on walls covered in symbols that seemed to shift and breathe in the flickering illumination. Bryn crouched beside her, his natural night vision better suited to these dark depths than her multiple eyes. "Dr. Kira, are you certain we should be here? These archives are classified at levels I did not know existed. The classification system assumes normal circumstances," she replied, photographing another series of hieroglyphs with her scanner. "What is happening above us is anything but normal. If I am correct about what Alex represents, then these symbols may be the key to understanding not just their nature, but the true history of our galaxy." The tablet she was studying showed a story in pictures. Beings of light fleeing from a darkness that consumed entire universes. A great journey across an impossible void. The hiding of something precious in the genetic patterns of countless species, scattered across space and time like seeds waiting for the right season to grow. "Look at this," she called Bryn over to examine a section of wall that was covered in mathematical formulas rather than pictures. "These equations describe the fundamental forces of reality itself, but they are wrong. According to our current physics, these calculations should not work." Bryn studied the formulas with the careful attention his species gave to anything involving numbers. "They are not wrong, Dr. Kira. They are describing different physics. Physics from a universe where the basic constants were not the same as ours." "Exactly." Dr. Kira felt the pieces of an impossible puzzle beginning to fit together. The predecessors were not just an ancient civilization from our own past. They were refugees from an entirely different reality. She moved to another section of the archive, where stone gave way to something that looked like crystallized light. The material was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own inner rhythm. Symbols flowed across its surface like living text, readable for brief moments before shifting into new configurations. "The universe they came from was dying," she read aloud from the flowing text. "The forces that held atoms together were weakening. Stars were going out not from age but from the simple inability of matter to maintain coherent existence. They had perhaps 1,000 years before complete universal collapse." Bryn made a soft hissing sound that indicated deep concentration. "How does one escape from a dying universe?" "By bringing a piece of the living one with you." Dr. Kira photographed the crystallized surface as quickly as she could, trying to capture the symbols before they changed again. "They call it the flame beyond. Not fire as we understand it, but the creative force that allows something to exist instead of nothing. The power that holds reality together." The text described a desperate gambit. The greatest minds of the dying universe working together to extract the fundamental essence of creation itself and encode it into biological patterns. Not just DNA as they understood it, but quantum-level information storage that could survive the transition between realities. They scattered it across thousands of species. Dr. Kira continued reading. Never all in one place, never in a form that would be immediately recognizable. It was meant to lie dormant until the proper conditions arose. What conditions? Dr. Kira found that answer on the next section of wall. A time when the current universe began to show signs of its own mortality. When the space between galaxies grew too large, when the fundamental forces started to weaken, when entropy began to outpace creation. Bryn looked up from his own examination of the archives. "Dr. Kira, according to recent astrophysical surveys, those conditions have been developing for several centuries. Dark energy acceleration, decreased star formation rates, measurable weakening of the strong nuclear force. Which means the flame is awakening because it senses that its services may soon be needed again." They worked in relative silence for the next hour, documenting as much as they could while the archive's crystalline surfaces remained readable. The story that emerged was both magnificent and terrifying. The predecessors had not simply fled their dying universe. They had stolen fire from the gods themselves and hidden it in the genes of unborn species, creating a backup plan for reality itself. But the flame was not meant to simply prevent universal death. It was meant to transform whoever carried it into something capable of transcending normal physical limitations. A being who could rewrite the basic laws of physics through will and intention alone. This explains Alex's effect on electronic systems, Dr. Kira realized. They are not malfunctioning. They are being upgraded to operate according to a more fundamental set of rules. Bryn had found a section describing the awakening process. According to this, the flame bearer will not be able to control their abilities initially. The power will express itself in response to emotional and situational stress, growing stronger until the bearer either learns to channel it properly or is consumed by it. Consumed how? The text is unclear, but it mentions the risk of burning so brightly that the vessel cannot contain the fire. It seems to suggest that without proper training and support, a flame bearer could literally transcend themselves out of existence. Dr. Kira felt a chill that had nothing to do with the archive's cool air. How much time do we have? The awakening process varies by species and circumstances, but most examples given here suggest weeks rather than months. A distant rumble shook dust from the ancient ceiling. The ships above were apparently growing impatient with whatever negotiations were taking place. Dr. Kira gathered her equipment quickly, but paused at one final section of text that seemed to address her directly. Those who would study the flame must understand, it cannot be controlled, only guided. It cannot be contained, only channeled. It cannot be owned, only shared. The flame chooses its own bearers, but it is the responsibility of all who encounter it to help kindle similar fires in others. Dr. Kira, Bryn said urgently, we need to return to the surface. These readings suggest that Alex's condition is accelerating. She nodded, taking one last look around the archives. The crystalline surfaces were already beginning to dim, their secrets once again hidden in stone and shadow. But she had gathered enough information to understand the magnitude of what was happening. Alex was not simply a human with unusual abilities. Alex was the first successful activation of a cosmic insurance policy, a failsafe designed by a dead civilization to prevent universal entropy. The political maneuvering above ground was not just about controlling a potentially dangerous individual. It was about the future of reality itself. As they climbed back toward the surface, passing through security checkpoints that waved them through without question, Dr. Kira tried to process the implications of what she had learned. The flame beyond was awakening after millions of years of dormancy, and Alex Reed was its chosen vessel. The question was whether the galaxy would accept this gift or destroy it out of fear. Above them, the rumbling grew louder, and Dr. Kira realized they might not have much time to find out. The first shots came without warning. Alex felt them before they heard them, a wrongness in the air that made their skin crawl and their heart race. From the Academy's central tower, they watched as brilliant beams of energy struck the planetary defense grid, overloading shields that had protected the world for centuries. How many ships? Commander Voss demanded over the communication system. 47 vessels from 16 different governments, came the reply from the control center. They are demanding immediate surrender of the human subject, or they will consider the Academy a hostile facility. Alex pressed their face against the reinforced window, watching as more energy beams lanced down from the sky. The Academy's own defensive systems were activating, but they had been designed to repel small raids, not a full-scale assault by multiple galactic powers. This is my fault, Alex said quietly to Dr. Kira, who had arrived breathless from her expedition to the deep archives. They are here because of what I am. No, Dr. Kira replied firmly, her four eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. They are here because they are afraid of what you represent. There is a difference. She pulled out her datapad, showing Alex photographs of ancient symbols. I know what you are now. The question is whether you are ready to become it. Before Alex could ask what she meant, alarms began screaming throughout the building. Through the window, they could see dropships separating from the larger vessels, heading for landing zones around the Academy perimeter. Commander Voss's voice echoed from every speaker in the facility. All personnel to battle stations. We are under direct assault. Defend your positions at all costs. But even as he spoke, something strange was happening to the Academy systems. Lights that should have been emergency red were cycling through colors that did not exist in standard spectrum analyzers. Computer displays were showing readouts in languages that the translation systems could not identify. Most disturbing of all, weapons that should have been charging for combat were instead humming with a harmony that sounded almost like music. Alex, Dr. Kira said urgently, you need to understand what is happening to you. The power you are carrying is not just energy. It is creative force itself. It responds to your emotional state, your intentions, your deepest needs. I am not intending anything, Alex protested. I do not even know how to control whatever this is. You are not controlling it, Dr. Kira agreed. It is expressing itself through you. And right now, it is reacting to the threat against people you care about. As if to prove her point, a massive explosion rocked the building. One of the attacking ships had scored a direct hit on the research wing. Through the communication system, they could hear reports of casualties and structural damage. Alex felt something ignite in their chest. Not anger exactly, but a deep sense that this wrongness needed to be corrected. The lights around them began to pulse brighter, and they could hear electronic systems throughout the building responding to their emotional state. Dr. Kira, get everyone away from me, Alex said, their voice sounding strange in their own ears. I can feel it building, and I do not think I can stop it. But Dr. Kira stepped closer instead of backing away. You are not supposed to stop it. You are supposed to let it flow through you and into others. The flame was never meant for just one person. She was joined by Nara, the resonant student who had been leading the faithful cadets. Nara's crystalline body was glowing so brightly now that she cast prismatic shadows on the walls. The old songs are becoming true, Nara said, her musical voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Alex's bones. We can feel it awakening in ourselves. The fire you carry is lighting similar flames in others. More cadets began arriving at the tower. Not just the believers, but students from Dr. Kira's research group, and even some of Commander Voss's security personnel. They came from different species, different backgrounds, different beliefs, but they all shared one thing in common. They were all beginning to exhibit the same strange phenomena that had started with Alex. The Saurian students were displaying crest patterns that had not been seen in their species for generations. The Voidkin were manifesting physical forms more solid than any of their kind had achieved in recorded history. Even the normally reserved archive species were showing signs of enhanced cognitive abilities. What is happening to them? Alex asked. What was always supposed to happen, Dr. Kira replied, consulting her notes from the deep archives. The flame was scattered across multiple species because it was never meant to manifest in just one individual. You are not the chosen one, Alex, you are the catalyst. Another explosion, closer this time. Through the window, Alex could see ground forces moving through the Academy's outer defenses. The attackers were not just trying to capture the facility, they were trying to destroy it. They would rather eliminate the flame than risk losing control of it, Dr. Kira observed grimly. That was when Alex felt something break loose inside them. Not break as in damaged, but break as in a dam giving way to floodwaters. The pressure that had been building in their chest suddenly expanded outward, flowing into the other students gathered around them. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The tower filled with light that had texture and warmth, light that seemed to carry information and intention. Every electronic system in the building began operating not according to its programming, but according to the collective will of the people using it. Weapon systems designed to destroy began creating protective barriers instead of firing destructive beams. Damaged sections of the Academy started repairing themselves, not through any technological process, but through the simple collective intention that they should be whole again. Alex stood at the center of it all, no longer fighting the power flowing through them, but learning to direct it. They could feel the consciousness of every student connected to the network of flame that was spreading throughout the Academy. Each person remained themselves, but they were also part of something larger. The attacking ships, Nara said, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos outside. They cannot understand what they are seeing. Through the window, Alex watched as the enemy vessels began to slow their assault. Energy beams that should have struck their targets were curving away harmlessly, redirected by laws of physics that were apparently more flexible than anyone had believed. Dropships attempting to land found their engines transforming from propulsion systems into something that could only be described as musical instruments. We need to show them that we are not a threat, Alex said, understanding finally beginning to dawn. The flame does not want to conquer or destroy. It wants to create and share. Dr. Kira was frantically taking readings with instruments that were probably not designed to measure what was happening around them. Alex, the energy patterns you are generating are spreading beyond the Academy. I am detecting similar manifestations in civilian populations across the planet. Is that dangerous? I do not think so. The flame seems to adapt itself to each individual's capacity and nature. It is not forcing change. It is offering possibility. Commander Voss's voice crackled over the communication system. But instead of military orders, he was asking for reports on the unprecedented phenomena manifesting throughout his forces, weapons that refused to fire at living targets, defense systems that were somehow distinguishing between hostile intent and mere presence, security barriers that opened automatically for anyone approaching with peaceful intentions. "Sir," came a report from the perimeter. "The attacking forces are requesting permission to land envoys rather than assault troops. They say their own ship systems are manifesting similar anomalies." Alex closed their eyes and extended their awareness beyond the academy, feeling for the other sparks of flame that were beginning to kindle across the planet and beyond. They were everywhere, waiting in the genetic memory of dozens of species, awakening now that the catalyst had finally appeared. This is what the predecessors intended, they realized aloud. Not one person with godlike power, but entire civilizations learning to transcend their limitations together. The light in the tower began to pulse in rhythm with Alex's heartbeat, but now it was joined by similar rhythms from all the other students. The harmony they created was visible as well as audible, patterns of energy that spoke directly to the consciousness, rather than requiring translation through normal senses. Outside, the attacking fleets were no longer attacking. Their ships hung in space like a gathering of witnesses rather than enemies, their crews struggling to understand equipment that had suddenly become cooperative rather than merely obedient. "Alex," Dr. Kira said softly, "I think you need to speak to them, all of them, not just as a human but as the first conscious bearer of the flame." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders like a comfortable cloak. They stepped closer to the communication array, which had somehow transformed from a standard academy system into something that could reach across space itself. "This is Alex Reed," they said, their voice carrying on frequencies that touched the mind directly. "I want you to know that none of us are your enemies. We are not trying to conquer or control anything. We are simply learning to become more than we were before." The response came not in words but in a flood of questions and emotions from dozens of different species. Fear, curiosity, wonder, suspicion, hope. Alex felt all of it, understood all of it, and found they could respond to each concern with perfect clarity. "The power we carry is not ours alone. It belongs to all of us, and it can only grow when it is shared. We invite you to join us, not as subjects or followers, but as partners in discovering what we can become together." The transformation that followed was not immediate, but it was undeniable. One by one, crew members on the attacking ships began to report the same phenomena that had manifested at the academy. The flame was spreading, not through conquest but through invitation, awakening the dormant potential that had been waiting in their genetic patterns for millions of years. Alex remained at the center of the growing network. No longer an individual human, but a focal point for something far greater than any single species had ever imagined possible. 6 months after the academy incident, Alex stood in what had once been the examination chamber, watching as the last of the old scanning equipment was carefully dismantled. The 2 scanner itself had been retired to the Academy Museum, no longer needed for its original purpose but preserved as a reminder of the day everything changed. The chamber now served a different function entirely. Where once cadets had lined up to be measured and categorized, beings from across the galaxy now came to learn how to kindle their own inner flame. The process could not be forced or rushed. Each individual had to discover their own path to awakening, guided by others who had already made the journey. Dr. Kira approached, carrying a datapad filled with the morning's reports. Her research had expanded far beyond the Academy's walls. As scientists throughout the galaxy worked to understand the new physics that were becoming possible when consciousness and reality collaborated instead of simply coexisting. "The latest surveys show manifestations on over 3,000 worlds," she announced, her 4 eyes bright with the excitement of discovery that had never left her. "The Voidkin homeworld is reporting the first solid-form births in their species' recorded history. The Saurian Council has had to create entirely new categories of crest patterns to accommodate the variations their people are developing." Alex nodded, feeling a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with personal achievement. The flame that burned within them had become a shared fire, warming beings they would never meet but whose growth they could sense across the vast distances of space. "Any problems with integration?" Alex asked. "Fewer than we expected," Dr. Kira replied. The flame seems to adapt itself to each species' nature rather than imposing uniform changes. The warrior cultures are developing enhanced abilities related to protection and defense. The scholarly species are manifesting new forms of cognitive enhancement. The artistic peoples are creating works that exist in dimensions we did not know were accessible. Through the chamber's large windows, Alex could see the academy grounds buzzing with activity. The military training facilities had been converted into collaborative workshops where cadets from different species learned to combine their emerging abilities. The research centers had become open laboratories where ancient mysteries were being solved through direct experimentation with reality itself. Commander Voss entered the chamber, his stern expression softened by changes that went deeper than mere physical appearance. The rigid military discipline that had once defined him had evolved into something more flexible, more responsive to the needs of individuals rather than just the demands of systems. "Alex, we have received another request from the Galactic Council," he said. "They want you to address their assembly directly, to explain what you represent and what your intentions are for the future." Alex considered this. The political structures of the galaxy were struggling to adapt to a reality where individual beings could transcend the limitations that had previously defined their roles and capabilities. Some governments embraced the changes, seeing opportunities for growth and exploration that had never been possible before. Others resisted, fearing the loss of control that came with empowered populations. "What would I tell them?" Alex asked. "That I am not their leader, not their savior, not their threat? That the flame belongs to everyone or no one? That the choice to grow beyond their current limitations is entirely their own? Perhaps," Commander Voss suggested, "you could tell them that the future is not something that happens to them, but something they create together." Before Alex could respond, Nara entered the chamber with a group of new arrivals. These were not cadets or researchers, but representatives from species that had only recently made contact with galactic civilization. They had come not for training or study, but simply to witness what was becoming possible when beings chose cooperation over competition. "The deep space monitoring stations report something interesting," Nara announced, her crystalline form now capable of manifesting in colors that had no names in any known language. "Ships are arriving from directions we have never explored before. Not just our own galaxy, but from places so distant that their light has never reached our sensors." Alex felt a familiar stirring in their chest, the same sensation that had preceded every major development in their journey. The flame was responding to something new, something that suggested their story was far from over. "Are they friendly?" Commander Voss asked, his military instincts still alert despite his personal transformation. "They are curious," Alex replied, somehow certain of this despite having no logical reason for the knowledge. "They have been watching our galaxy for a very long time, waiting to see if we would eventually develop the wisdom to handle the gifts the predecessors left for us." Dr. Kira looked up from her datapad with excitement. "Alex, if you are correct, this could mean contact with civilizations that evolved from survivors of other dead universes. The implications for our understanding of cosmic history are staggering. The implications for our future are even more important," Alex said quietly. "The flame we carry is not unique to our galaxy. It is part of something much larger, a network of consciousness and creative power that spans realities we have not even imagined yet." They moved to the chamber's central platform, where the old scanning equipment had once tried to measure and categorize the unmeasurable. Now the platform served as a focal point for meditation and connection, allowing individuals to sense their place in the growing web of awakened consciousness. "The test is not over," Alex realized, speaking as much to themselves as to the others in the chamber. "The scanner incident was just the beginning. We are being evaluated by intelligences that survived the death of entire universes, and they are deciding whether we are ready to join a community that exists beyond the boundaries of space and time." The flame within them pulsed with anticipation rather than anxiety. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not as isolated individuals or even as separate species, but as part of something greater than the sum of their parts. Outside the chamber windows, the Academy continued its work of transformation, preparing beings from across the galaxy for a future that none of them could fully imagine, but all of them were helping to create. The scanner that had once measured what they were had been replaced by the understanding that what they could become had no limits except those they chose to accept. Alex smiled, feeling the warmth of countless other flames burning in harmony across the galaxy and beyond. The test was far from over, but they were no longer taking it alone. The fire had been passed, and it would never go out again. The ancient device hummed with a sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Alex Reed watched as another cadet stepped forward, placing their scaled hand on the glowing surface. The scanner beam swept down from ceiling to floor, bathing the reptilian student in pale blue light. Numbers appeared on the display screen, written in symbols that looked more like art than mathematics. "Next," called the archivist, her voice echoing in the vast examination chamber. Alex had been waiting in this line for 3 hours. The Galactic Defense Academy processed hundreds of cadets every cycle, and each one had to pass through the 2 scanner before they could begin their training. It was tradition, they said. It was necessary, they said. The machine had been doing the same job for longer than any living species could remember. The cadet ahead of Alex was from the resonant homeworld. Their crystalline body caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When the scanner beam touched them, their entire form began to glow from within. The display showed their results in shifting colors rather than numbers. The archivist nodded and made notes on her datapad. Acceptable energy resonance. Combat potential moderate. Proceed to orientation. The resonant walked away with clicking steps that sounded like wind chimes. Alex moved forward in the line. Only 5 more cadets ahead now. The examination chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows. The 2 scanner itself stood in the center like a monument. It was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, moving and changing when no one was looking directly at them. According to the Academy Handbook, the device had been built by the predecessors, an ancient race that vanished long before any current civilization developed space travel. Alex looked around at the other cadets waiting their turn. There were saurians with their tough green skin and sharp teeth. A group of voidkin floated slightly above the ground, their transparent bodies barely visible except for the soft light that pulsed inside them. Several resonants stood together, their crystal forms creating tiny rainbows whenever they moved. There were other species too, ones Alex had only read about in textbooks back on Earth. Next, a voidkin drifted forward. The scanner beam passed through their transparent body like light through water. The display showed readings in patterns that looked like star charts. Alex wondered what the machine was actually measuring. The Academy said it tested spiritual energy, genetic potential, and connection to cosmic forces. Whatever those meant. Next. Now Alex stood at the front of the line. The archivist looked up from her datapad. She was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shifted between blue and purple depending on the light. Her large eyes had no pupils that Alex could see. Name and homeworld? Alex Reed. Earth. The archivist paused and looked at Alex more carefully. Earth, the new contact world. We have had very few human applicants. I'm the first one to make it this far in the selection process. Indeed. The archivist made some notes. Please step forward and place your hand on the contact surface. Alex walked to the scanner. Up close, the device was even more impressive. It towered above them, humming with power that seemed to vibrate in their bones. The contact surface was a smooth panel at chest height, warm to the touch and covered in those same shifting symbols. Alex placed their palm flat against it. The humming stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the other cadets stopped talking. Alex could hear their own heartbeat. Then the scanner began to shake. The beam that emerged was not the pale blue light Alex had seen before. It was white, brilliant white, so bright that everyone in the chamber had to shield their eyes. The beam swept down Alex's body, but instead of the smooth motion it had used on the other cadets, it stuttered and flickered. The display screen went blank. Then symbols began appearing, but not the neat, organized readouts the other cadets had received. These symbols flashed rapidly, changing faster than anyone could read them. Languages Alex had never seen scrolled past. Some of the symbols seemed to move off the screen entirely, floating in the air like burning letters. What is happening? Someone called out. The archivist was pressing buttons on her control panel, but nothing seemed to work. The scanner's humming had returned, but louder now, building to a sound that made everyone's teeth ache. Alex tried to pull their hand away from the contact surface, but it would not move. The surface had become sticky or maybe magnetic. They could feel something flowing up their arm, like electricity but warmer. More screens around the chamber began displaying the same chaotic symbols. Then those screens began to crack. One by one they went dark with spiderweb patterns spreading across their surfaces. "Shut it down," the archivist shouted to her assistants. "Shut everything down." But the scanner would not shut down. If anything, it was getting brighter. The white beam had spread to surround Alex entirely. They stood in a column of light that stretched from floor to ceiling. Other cadets began backing away. Some of the Saurians were making distressed clicking sounds. The Voidkin had dimmed almost to invisibility. Even the resonance, who usually glowed constantly, had gone dark. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The light vanished. The humming died away. Alex stumbled backward, their hand finally free from the contact surface. The display screens were all dark now, some of them smoking. In the silence, Alex could hear only their own rapid breathing and the nervous sounds from the other cadets. The archivist stared at them with her large, dark eyes. Her skin had gone completely blue, which Alex somehow knew meant she was afraid. "What are you?" she whispered. Alex looked down at their hands. They looked normal. They felt normal. "I don't know." Security guards entered the chamber, their weapons drawn but not quite pointed at Alex. The archivist spoke into her communicator in a language Alex did not recognize. The other cadets were still backing away, some of them already at the exit. "Everyone else, please proceed to orientation," the archivist announced, though her voice shook. "The examination will continue tomorrow with backup systems." The cadets left quickly, whispering among themselves in dozens of different languages. Alex remained standing next to the silent scanner, surrounded by security guards and trying to understand what had just happened. "Come with us," one of the guards said. Their voice was gentle, but Alex could see that refusing was not an option. As they walked toward the exit, Alex looked back at the scanner. For just a moment, they thought they saw one of the symbols on its surface pulse with faint light. But when they looked again, the device was as dark and silent as ancient stone.